doing so much better. Their cars are really good, in many ways. And that's really, for me, the tragedy of it.
Even after 2-3 years of brand being available in the market, a lot of our friends from urban areas actually asked, what is this brand?
I think the big news is what not next for Jeep in India. And from what we heard, the next-gen Compass is canned.
They have all the required fundamental structures in place. It's just about getting the product and the product planning right.
They've got a long-term plan that we know. They've got the kind of legs to go the distance purely because they've invested very frugally. Hello and welcome to Deep Drive, our weekly podcast powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime. Every week, we talk about all the buzz in the auto industry, some gossip, and some real deep insights. I'm Hormazd Sorabjee.
Hi, I'm Ketan Thakkar. Glad to be back, Hormazd.
Exciting topic today.
Oh, absolutely. I've been curious to talk to you about the interesting world of Stellantis, so to say. A lot happening, a lot of change in management, new brand ambassador with regards to Citroen. They're trying to do a lot with Jeep. And I'm curious to talk about what exactly is happening in the world.
Well, exactly. I think why we've taken this topic today is basically we've seen a change at the top. The MD of Stellantis has gone, which is a shame in a way because I think he was doing a pretty good job getting everything together. But Aditya Jairaj, who came in, pretty young, just 42 years old, full of energy, gone within a year. And there's been a lot of other changes in the management, hasn't there?
Absolutely. I mean, over the last year at least, we've seen a different brand head for Jeep, different brand head for Citroen, and the change in marketing head as well. And clearly that's not helping given the fact that both the brands are actually at their bottom. I mean, the volumes for Citroen, despite having mainstream models, is struggling in 3 digits. Jeep, which is a premium brand, at its peak, it did almost about 2,000, 2,500 units. Again, is back to sub 250, 300 units. It's really difficult times for both the brands, and it'll be a hard job for the new MD who comes in to take the ship ahead.
Yes, and the new MD, Shailesh Hazela, we've not met him yet, but I understand he's in the system. He's an old hand. So some form of continuity will be there because I think that's what Stellantis is suffering from right now. But what I'd like to go back to is the initial strategy of Carlos Tavares, which was actually a fantastic strategy if you look at it. I think they came in late and, they, as they say, hindsight is 20/20 vision because they saw what all was happening with the other brands, notably Ford, GM, especially Ford, which invested so much.
Right.
And then they just had to exit because, they just over-invested, especially in Sanand, which was really the kind of millstone around their neck and big white elephant. So I think his strategy was quite smart. No new plant, an old, what they call a brownfield plant, HM's old plant, setting up a powertrain strategy, knowing that India will be last man standing in ICE. So all the ICE engines, internal combustion engines can be produced here and exported as well. I think even in terms of the product offering or the brands well thought out of, I think product planning is where they really messed up, which we can come to. But I think at the end of the day, he kept the investment very, very low. I mean, in terms of costs, I think there's no one to really beat Stellantis and Tavares, where, they are operating on some 11-12% now globally as far as their margin goes.
No, phenomenal. I think a smart strategy to begin with. They started with exports of engines, exports of gearboxes to Europe and the other parts of the world. That actually started making money for Stellantis in India, which was erstwhile Fiat Chrysler Automobile. And even before the first car was made, the company was making huge amount of money. I remember when the announcement of the brand was taking place in Tamil Nadu, Chennai in 2020, there was a vendor meeting that took place, and there they declared that they want to source almost about $2 billion of parts. So clearly, India was a strategic market for them. But my question to you, Hormazd, is that the frugal approach that they started with did not really help when it comes to go-to-market strategy with the brand Citroen. And Indian market at that point in time was at a cusp of shifting towards more premium cars.
Absolutely.
So help me understand, the frugality definitely helped them with lower investments and all. How did it eventually pay out?
I think, you can be frugal in a lot of things where, customers don't see why you're using the knife. So I think, they're very good that way and they should be. But I think, a couple of things. One is, the most important thing is, as you said, premiumization. I think they missed the point that now the Indian customer wants all the best bells and whistles. He wants a certain level of quality. And when, the C3 came out, I think everyone was shocked when you didn't have the basics. I mean, imagine having a car with just, a manual power window adjustment, and you have to lean across and adjust the far side power. It's just not acceptable, right?
Absolutely.
Clunky HVAC controls. Which was a real shame because, as a product, engineering-wise, the car is actually fantastic. It's got the best 1.2 engine, both naturally aspirated and turbo. It is an outstanding engine. And that turbo petrol is really superb. In fact, we recently did a drag race with it, I think with the Mahindra. At that time, it was the XUV 300, the turbo petrol then, which was, pretty quick. And it just blew it apart. In fact, just for fun, we're just going to play that for you. So you can see how well the C3 performs. Ride and handling, absolutely outstanding. Superb steering. So just the mechanicals, the fundamentals actually were superb. Totally let down by, silly cost cutting. In fact, I think in our review, we said the interiors look like it's been designed by the accountants and not the engineers, So clearly that seemed to be the big issue. So I think they really got it wrong. They didn't understand how the Indian customer, especially post-COVID, had evolved.
Right.
He was gone beyond cost. He wanted value, which was there, and he was willing to spend for better things in life, one of them being a car with a good interior. And really today, the touchscreen, which of course the C3 has, is central to everything. But, it's beyond that. The bells and whistles, things like sunroofs, just good trim parts, all that is something which I think they stinted on. And you could see that, it was a cost-cutting exercise. And I think the other thing is that I think OEMs, when they enter India, and, we saw that with Kia and MG, which came around the same time.
Yeah, interestingly, around the same time.
Yeah, you have to pay your entry fees. You have to invest in the brand. And I think that's what Citroen didn't do. And Jeep also, they just stopped investing in the brand altogether. In fact, I remember a Citroen dealer saying that he was begging, at least put a hoarding outside my showroom to, let people know. So they hardly spent, they hardly marketed the car. Because again, they've been so bottom line focused. And I think that's where India humbles the smartest of people. And Tavares has been humbled by, how their brands have performed in India. But, you saw how MG and Kias, absolutely they came in with a bang into India, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, you just offered everything possible in the car.
Correct.
All powertrains, all features. And Citroen was exactly the opposite. And the frugality that helped on the bottom line clearly also did not play out when it comes to go-to-market strategy. In fact, I was amazed at their phygital strategy, so to say. They decided to have only physical showrooms in major cities, and they actually wanted digital to be a platform for to get buyers from the hinterlands. And even after 2-3 years of brand being available in the market, a lot of our friends from urban areas actually asked, what is this brand? And how, a lot of them don't even know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
And so the brand awareness was way too low. The showroom footprint was way too little. The dealers had to put up big showrooms in the major cities, but the volume was not there. So even the go-to-market strategy, according to me, little ahead of time. Yes, you need to have the digital approach, but I think they went a little too over-aggressive on the go-to-market strategy, according to me.
Yeah, but and I think also, coming to the volumes, I think their volumes are really pathetic right now, right at the bottom.
Absolutely.
The sense I get is because, that's one of the, I would say, disadvantages of having such a, frugal cost base, because their break-even is so low,
Right.
that they were not desperate for large volumes. And I think, from what I understand, everyone had very easy targets. And Stellantis was fine with that. Okay, small numbers, we'll grow organically. Because it wasn't really burning a hole in their pocket because they are just so kind of, been cost focused. So I think the frugal strategy is, unlike, let's say, a Volkswagen or a Ford before, like Volkswagen, completely the opposite. The way they spend and their cost structures. I think Stellantis is at the other extreme. In fact, I remember that when, if you remember, Peugeot and Tata were having some conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, I think finally the deal didn't happen because PSA's cost structure was better than Tata. So they said, what are we getting out of this? So they're fantastic on their, let's say, costing. They're fantastic on, let's say, just keeping everything as frugal as possible. But I think the downside is it's not allowed the brand to grow despite the products and fundamental engineering being very good.
I still remember 2019 when the C5 had come in. Carlos Tavares was in Tamil Nadu, and all of us journalists, we asked him about his long-term vision. And all of us were shocked to know that by 2025, he wants to sell 1 lakh cars. And in a market wherein everyone gave those really aggressive, tall targets of 10%, 5%, here was this company is getting into the market, planning to have mass market portfolio and still only wanting to sell 100,000 cars in 6 years. That was that shocked a lot of us. And I think that approach right at the start, when the targets are so very modest, I think the approach and the execution plan also follows in that.
Exactly. There's no aggression in trying to build a brand. There's no aggression in sales. So you can clearly see that. But, having said that, a lot of people ask the typical kind of comments you get on social media. Oh, they're going to pack up and go home and all. I don't think they are. They've got a long-term plan that we know. That's for sure. There are going to be speed bumps along the way. And I think they've got the kind of legs to go the distance purely because they've invested very frugally. They've not really burnt a lot of money in India, which a lot of other brands have done. We talked about it earlier.
Right.
Because India can be one big hole in which money can just go and never come out. Ford never made money in 20 years. GM also had the same problem. And I think they've seen these cases of how multinationals have failed. So I think I would give it to them that at least their approach as far as, let's say, cost is concerned, as far as investment is concerned, cautious, conservative, but there for the long term.
Hence, there's no desperation. And I think the Ranjangaon factory with the Tata Motors, the erstwhile Fiat India Private Limited, a joint venture with Tata.
I think that's the longest standing joint venture today.
Yeah, indeed. And it's paying both the companies. Tatas are getting much needed capacity, and Stellantis is actually
getting much needed revenue.
Absolutely. And the other part of Stellantis is also the Jeep brand, and which is where I actually want to get your views about the erstwhile Fiat Chrysler India entered India somewhere in 2016, 2018 timeframe. But we've had series of false starts from Fiat, and which has eventually transitioned into Fiat India to Fiat Chrysler Automobile to now Stellantis India. Jeep brand, there was so much of reverence towards it. There was so much of love, really established brand. Where did they get it wrong? And could you just reflect on the past as to how strategically they made mistakes?
So I think actually, Ketan, that's a really good point. I want to talk about Fiat because Fiat has been it's a household name.
Yeah.
Padminis were there. Before Padmin, there was Fiat.
Right.
We know the history of Fiat with the Doshis at that time and Palchan Nirachan also, so clearly it's really intrinsic to our auto industry.
Storied name.
Absolutely storied name. Then Fiat, after opening up of the de-licensing, they came with the Uno. Again, a fantastic start. I remember 290,000 bookings.
Wow. And this was 1997, if I'm not wrong.
That's right. 1996, 97, I think. I'm not sure. One of those years. Mid-90s for sure.
Crazy numbers for those times.
Crazy numbers. Of course, they couldn't deliver. And they had a partner in Premier Auto, which was sleeping with both. Peugeot at that time, by the way, which then exited in 97. That's a different story.
Right.
But they messed it up with the Uno at that time. They just couldn't compete. And, honestly, you're up against Maruti.
Right.
And it's not easy at all. But again, they didn't give up. And they came back with the Palio.
Yeah.
Again, a fantastic car. Took the market by storm. At that time, I think it went up to 4,000 units a month, which was a lot at that time. A 1.6, a 1.2. But again, I think where it fell is they didn't take seriously the Indian kind of need or absolutely, how important running costs were and maintenance costs were. And Fiat successively built a really bad reputation for service. And the fuel economy on the Palio was really terrible. And that was one of the reasons also why it failed. Fuel economy and fuel efficiency far more important than it is now. I mean, don't forget, that was an age where, per capita incomes weren't very high. A car was very much a luxury still. Running costs was super, super important. They still are today, but much more at that time. And how the fuel consumption, or the terrible fuel consumption of the Palio, was one of the reasons why it failed. And I'll tell you one little anecdote which I was really shocked at, I'm just surprised Fiat didn't even think about it. The car had come from Brazil, and we changed the profile of the tire to a slightly higher one for India. And you get a margin of speedo error in that, I think maybe 5% plus or minus.
Right.
So the speedo error was 5%, but negative in the sense that it was giving you better mileage. Because of the high profile of the tire, the odometer was under-reading slightly.
Oh my God.
So the customer thought he wasn't getting the better mileage, and that added to the problem. This a Fiat engineer told me.
Wow.
Because they didn't want to bother just recalibrating that speedometer to get it, because just it was within that little tolerance.
Correct.
Because we used a higher profile tire. So silly things like that. Then, of course, they got another start with the Linea, which I thought...
Which was a joint venture with Tata Motors. Yeah. They started selling together.
The retail was a joint venture, which I think was maybe they were desperate. They had no other way to do it. But I think Tata Motors very clearly at that time were looking after their own products more. In fact, we did it's very interesting, we did a so-called sting operation. Remember our colleague Dara Islam, who went to Mercedes, he went into both showrooms to... kind of buy whether it was a Tata Indica or let's say a Punto at that time. I think it was the Vista at that time. Vista, right, the Vista at that time. And, finding out what each one was saying, and each one kind of, knocking the other. But it was quite interesting. Clearly, whilst there was agreement at the top with Mr. Tata and Marchionne, down it was not very kind of, let's say, cooperative. And I think Fiat suffered by giving their retail to Tata Motors at that time. But I think, again, the product was costly, expensive. Service was an issue. A lot of the parts were still not localized, so they were very, very expensive to replace. And you're operating in really, let's say, the lower end of the market. So I think, again, the Punto failed. And then I remember at the Geneva Motor Show, I'm not sure which year it was, but it was Marchionne was still alive at that time. He told me while passing, Fiat's had its chance in India.
Wow.
That's it. So, that was like a sign.
So you knew.
So we knew. And then we knew what happened. They pulled the plug on Fiat. And obviously, it became Jeep. Great start again with Jeep. It was our car of the year.
Yes.
2018, the Compass was our car of the year. So it was really well priced. And a fantastic product for the time. I mean, it was really superb. Great ride, great engine, choice of petrol, diesel, all that. And we've seen the story now. They've not invested. They had one major facelift, which was good. But, they needed to do more. And at that time, competition was also catching up with it. Competition, which was cheaper, was scoring in places in terms of the rear seat space, in terms of, let's say, some of the features. The Compass had solid four-wheel drive capability, but that really wasn't appreciated. So customers didn't want to pay for that extra four-wheel drive capability, which it had. Though you did get a two-wheel drive version as well. But the car was engineered as a four-wheel drive, which had inherent costs. Right. And then I think, again, I think they lost kind of momentum and direction because Stellantis happened.
The global
restructuring, and suddenly 14 brands. And I think then what happens is you have your priorities. Even the UAW strike in America. So I think the focus completely shifted away from India. And I think, now it's come back. But, still they've had their struggles.
Now, clearly, a lot of liking towards the Jeep brand as well as Fiat brand, but false start after false start. What next for Jeep in India? I
think the big news is what not next for Jeep in India. And from what we heard, the next-gen Compass is canned.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so I think we know it was on the Stella M platform, which is a very flexible platform. It was very exciting. In fact, we reported on it also in Autocar on our website when we heard Stella M is coming to India. It'll be the next Jeep Compass.
Right.
We knew the code J4U.
J4U, that's correct.
Suppliers were gearing up for it. And I think the advantage was it was going to be EV as well as ICE, petrol engine. So you were going to have an electric Compass from the get-go. And that was the actually advantage of the Stella M platform, is that it was a very flexible platform. You could have a full electric powertrain and you could have an ICE powertrain. But with that flexibility came high cost.
Right.
I think the suppliers were saying it overshot that cost targets by 1.7x. Insane. So that
doesn't go well in Tavares as well.
No, it doesn't go well in Tavares as well. It was a non-starter. So I think it got canned. Just recently it's been canned. So everyone's asking what next.
What next? Exactly. That's a big question.
So I think they're going to be doing the constant facelifts of the Compass right now. And the question is, will they bring back a petrol engine? Again, sadly not.
Oh my God.
Because I think,
Very hard for a brand to survive then.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be tough. But hang on, I think what else is happening, and they've got something up their sleeve. So I think, again, why no petrol? It's such a logical thing to do when the whole market is gradually shifting away from diesel to petrol. I think it's a classic struggle of cost versus volumes.
Right.
They just don't have the volumes to justify the investment in a petrol engine again. So I think, what are they selling right now? About 300, 400? Or
about 300, 400. Yeah, that's correct.
300, 400. And which is a shame, because they had a little bit of a jump with, the 4x2 diesel, which they had got, and, they had kind of, let's say, had cheaper variants. Right now, again, they've got a cheaper variant again. But I think, you need to do a lot more.
Absolutely.
It's now 2018. We are already in 2024. So it's already 6 years into its life cycle. So it's getting a bit long in the tooth, however many facelifts you do. And, so now with no new Compass, they're just going to chalao this for as long as they can. And with just a diesel engine, no petrol. So that is going to be quite a challenge. But I think the big news is, which, we had questioned why they hadn't done it earlier, is all new Jeep, whether it's a Compass or a new model, on the Citroen CQ platform.
Wow. Okay.
And I think that's
more affordable, frugal platform.
It is. And I think what you will see in maybe 26 is Jeep coming with a 15 to 20 lakh model.
Wow. Yeah. That's the most accessible Jeep in India and probably around the world, maybe.
Probably around the world. Yeah, I think it will be. I think there will be a global market for this. And it's going to be on the Citroen CQ platform. I think it will be about a 4.3 meter car. I don't think it'll have the 1.2 petrol, because in a Jeep you need more. You could have a 1.6 because they have a 4-cylinder version of this 1.2.
Right.
The 1.2 3-cylinder, you can have a 1.6 4-cylinder.
What about the electrification? I mean, what about 4x4? Then the electrification makes sense there?
Exactly. So that's a good point. The question is, why didn't they think of making Jeep on this platform earlier? There was just one reason, is that this platform can't support 4x4 for ICE. It just couldn't. It means re-engineering the whole platform. There's no place for a propeller shaft to drive the rear wheels. And Jeep, correctly so, cannot not have a 4x4 option in its lineup. It goes
against the brand.
It goes against the brand. It's just not part of the brand DNA. And honestly, even Mahindra's like that, which is good. Mahindra has 4x4 for, well, not its smaller ones, 3XO, but the bigger ones, they all have a 4x4.
Right.
So the big reason why, and I think we'd again done a story on this, that, how do you do a 4x4 on a smaller Jeep using this current Citroen platform? They'd even explored the hybrid, which is a 4xe, which is by having just the rear axle electrified.
Right.
And the companies which do this, Dana and all of them have kind of, electric rear axles.
Right.
So the e-axle or the rear axle was one way, but again, very, very costly, because
adds to the cost. Yeah.
You got hybrid, you got an ICE engine as well as this. I think now, like what Tata is doing with the Safari and Harrier, the only way to get them to go 4x4, and an easy way to get them to go 4x4 is full electric. One motor at the back, one motor at the rear, driving two axles, and you've got your 4x4 there, and it's a lot more manageable. So I think the 4x4 for Jeep, for this new platform, will be pure EV. And I think that's a very exciting and interesting strategy. It's just that 2 years is a long time to, keep the Compass going. But I think what people need to know, that there is an exciting future with Jeep, with this all new model, 15 to 20 lakhs, with multiple powertrains and a 4x4 EV as well.
So that's a big scoop coming from us, from the interesting world of Stellantis.
That's right.
A Jeep, the most accessible Jeep ever, with an electric powertrain as well. Clearly staying true to the Jeep DNA. And definitely, I mean, Jeep is not going away, and it'll be nice to see more accessible SUV model wherein the brand actually lost the way when the entire market was shifting towards the SUV market.
That's right. And talking about, electrification, Citroen, again, a great strategy, a platform that can give you ICE as well as EVs. But EC3, again, what are the volumes they're doing? About 150, 200? I think it's...
probably even in double digits. I guess probably it was...
Yeah, in double digits, you're right.
Yeah.
Probably you're right. Yeah. Sorry, I think everything might be doing that. I got it wrong. Yeah.
And maybe it was a strategy to meet the CAFE norms?
Absolutely. I think it was fundamentally a strategy to meet the CAFE norms, because I think what Tavares has said is we're not paying any more fines for CAFE. I mean, globally, they paid Tesla millions, hundreds and millions of dollars, to buy carbon credits. Tesla, in fact, have made around $9 billion just selling carbon credits to OEMs. So I think, that way they could produce these so-called gas-guzzling Jeeps and, buy credits and meet their CAFE targets and not pay the fines. I think that's put a stop, and rightly so. I think Tavares has done the right thing. You've got to put your money where your mouth is, and, you've got to have your EVs to kind of offset, the CAFE and the CO2 from your ICE engine. So I think that's definitely one thing. The reason for the EC3 was to do that.
Nothing after that.
Nothing after that.
Again, stopgap.
Again, after the C3 Aircross, which is coming to a year now.
Yeah.
Typically there's a 6-month cadence between ICE and the EV version.
That was the plan, no?
That was the plan. And we expected that from the C3 Aircross as well. But there's no sign of the electric C3 Aircross. I think fundamentally it's a cost issue. I think somewhere down the road, they've got something wrong on their cost base. And these cars are ridiculously expensive. And again, it hurts Stellantis, which is really used to operating on high margins, will immediately cut the volume because they don't want to be selling cars at absolutely no margin, maybe even a loss in the case of the, let's say the EV versions. So I think that's why we've not seen it down the road. But, again, I think, EVs is the way forward. And then, Ketan, I wanted to ask you on Leapmotor. That's the story you broke.
Absolutely. And we broke it on the leap day of the leap year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was there at Beijing Auto Show, and did meet up with the management. Stellantis globally got into a joint venture with the Leapmotor, and the plan was to internationalize the Leap brand, and Stellantis wanted to capitalize on the assets and platforms of Leap. Clearly, the plan was defined. They are going to be taking on the Tiago with the T03. Tata Tiago EV.
Oh, so it's going to be that low priced.
Yes, sub 10 lakh is what they were targeting.
They'll have to localize a lot of it, I'm sure.
They're going to be relying to begin with. They're going to be relying on CBUs. Eventually, the plan is to utilize the existing assets in Tiruvallur. And at the announcement of internationalization strategy recently, Carlos Tavares did mention that wherever we have assets, we would like to leverage on local assets in order to avoid paying steep import duty. He's very well aware of the import structure that India has, and he is always been a supporter of making in India. He, in fact, told us in the past that he wants to actually make electric vehicles in India and ship it back to Europe. So clearly, the first step is CBU, move to CKD, and then eventually export it. But the biggest question I had was Stellantis Group, 14 global brands. Another brand comes in. Establishing brand is a big challenge that the group faces. What does this do to the brand managers at Stellantis?
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. It's a big distraction, especially when your mother brands or your main brands are not fully established yet. I would say Jeep it's around because it's been around since 2018. Citroen, which is, I would say, the main brand or the primary brand. And don't forget, Thierry Koskas also said that, India is going to be the second largest market, for Citroen globally.
In the coming years.
In the coming years, yeah. That is his target. In fact, we can just play that clip in an interview we had.
India can become our second biggest market worldwide for Citroen. which is huge, obviously.
It's very small numbers
and that's
so that's quite ambitious.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I take so much interest into India, obviously.
So clearly, you can see that they've got, let's say, small numbers. One might joke and say, "What is that number?" But I think Citroen really has a lot riding in India, and I think they're going to invest a lot more. We've seen, the Basalt also coming, so already 3, let's say, body styles, and I think they've done a really unique job. I think their design is fantastic. And that's really, for me, the tragedy of it, because they should be doing so much better. Their cars are really good, in many ways. Very innovative. Even the C3 Aircross, just the way the rear seat comes out, very, very innovative. They've got some really great innovative touches in the car. And even the engineering is really superb. So, again, I think what I've heard is that they've learned their lesson. And I think these cars which coming out will have a lot of the features which were missing earlier. The premiumization which you spoke of,
right,
that, which they missed that trend clearly when they came to India, or they didn't spot it fast enough. I think that now they've realized, and they're course correcting in that sense. So I think we will see that. But again, they have to spend money on building the Citroen brand.
Absolutely.
That is super important. And then Leapmotor as well.
Yeah.
We've seen this whole thing play out between Nissan and Datsun.
Yeah.
Nissan wasn't strong, and then Datsun really couldn't cut it at all, and now Datsun is gone. So I think, but it'll be interesting. And I think from a cafe point of view, they're completely sorted with Leapmotor EVs.
Now, maybe it also protects the dealers, because dealers...
That's right, because I think Leapmotor will be given to the Jeep dealers. Now, Jeep dealers have just one Compass and a Meridian. Sorry, we talked about the Meridian. We haven't spoken about it much. But again, I'm sorry, I'm digressing a bit, but again, the Meridian, again, so many things have gotten wrong. I mean, a simple thing like a sliding middle row, they didn't have that. Now, I was asking one of the engineers, that's such a basic thing. Why can't you have a sliding middle row? And the reason for that is the Meridian was meant to be exported to the UK, right-hand drive version, as a PHEV, a plug-in hybrid. And the battery was to sit in a space just behind the middle row, which meant there was no kind of space to have a sliding mechanism.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Just to cater to one market,
correct,
they've re-engineered it in a manner that does not suit the Indian market.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. And it never got exported, finally. So these are the silly things that happen. So that's one of the reasons why, but again, so coming back to the dealers of Jeep, they have just 2 models right now. Clearly, both the models have a lot of competition. They're not flying off the shelves. So I think from their point of view, Leap Motors and, will give them a little bit more throughput, a little bit more volume, and, tide them through until the more affordable Jeep comes along.
Right. So in a way, we are talking about 3 brands again.
Don't forget, we've got Maserati also.
Oh yes, Maserati also. And again, suboptimal volumes when compared to the rivals in the space.
That's right. I'm sure they could do a lot better in that space. They hardly sell anything. In fact, they're virtually non-existent. But I think they've got some plans over there. But really, they're not going to lose sleep over whether they sell 4 or 8 or 10 in a year.
So all eyes now on Mr. Hazela, because for him, in a way, a sort of reboot again, because something that they've been struggling with, which is continuity. Hopefully, the architecture and platform strategy is more or less defined.
Yeah.
And hopefully, Leapmotor plays an important role. And I believe in our previous interviews, the global management, I believe it was Billy Hayes who even mentioned that there's potential of more brands. Hopefully, they leverage the architecture.
Who knows? Fiat might come back as well at some point.
Yeah. That'll be interesting. Interesting because again, they would want to leverage the architecture. Hopefully, the brand architecture, the platform architecture is defined, and now it's just about getting the brands in place.
Yeah, and I think absolutely right. And I think with Mr. Hazela coming in, he's from
the sourcing
background, and just to talk about sourcing, how, let's say, brutal they are on their cost, that a lot of the development work was outsourced to TCS.
Yes.
A lot of it was outsourced to TCS. But to be honest, there was so much that I think a lot of it had to be brought in-house to kind of meet timelines, and a lot of kind of, let's say, markers or milestones were missed because it's the quantum of work that there was.
Yeah.
So I think one thing is for sure, that they will keep their costs in check. Hopefully, not to a point where the customer can see it anymore, which they did as well. And, I think I would say that though they've had a rough kind of a couple of years, at least to me, they have more of a future than someone like Volkswagen, which have no new models. I can't see nothing really major coming out from VW at all. You've got the compact SUV from Skoda, but beyond that, there's nothing. Especially Volkswagen. There's nothing beyond the Virtus right now.
Right.
That's their last ICE car.
Right.
EVs, we don't know. They'll have, things like ID4, but at least with Stellantis, we know that there's a new Jeep coming out.
The localized platform.
A localized platform, a low-cost Jeep. And I think, Ketan, you've got some info that this could be a much bigger play, isn't it, on this platform for multiple brands? Maybe even Peugeot could benefit out of this.
No, absolutely. I mean, given the frugality is the core of what Stellantis does globally, there is a talk that the Stella S platform, which is going to be the core of the future's 4.3 meter and the upcoming Basalt, that may probably be used for brands like Peugeot, maybe even Fiat in future, and export vehicles around the world. And in a recent interview, Ashwini Upasani, the regional COO, mentioned to Sergis that India may not be profitable, but it is a strategic market, and clearly so. I mean, I think Chrysler R&D setup came way back in 2008. There is a ICT, which is a software base in Hyderabad. There are 2 manufacturing facilities. They're already utilizing India as a sourcing base. They're already utilizing India as an R&D base. Now, with the platform being put in place, I think it is just about ensuring that the brands are addressed and the go-to-market strategy is addressed. By just like Renault Nissan, they have all the required fundamental structures in place. It's just about getting the product and the product planning right, and also getting the go-to-market and the brand strategy right.
Right. Well, yeah, I think clearly there's a lot happening on that. And as I said, I'm particularly excited about the Jeep in a new avatar on the CQ platform. But while you talk about the Stella S, I think what's turning out is the C-Cube is turning out to be like, the really juicy, profitable platform for Stellantis, which they're going to milk as much as possible, not only for India and global markets, because they've really developed this. And this could be a good strategy of having a largely ICE platform with a little bit of EV flexibility, which they're developing for Jeep to give it that 4x4 capability.
Right. Ensure integration, vehicles, brands on one platform to get the scale, and at the same time have multiple models, something that they've been struggling with for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Great, Ketan. I think that was fun. Good to have you here as always. Great pleasure chatting with you. And thanks all of you for watching, and see you again next Saturday, same time.